Okay, just to kick off, congratulations on this whole new life for the Amazing Rhythm Aces.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I got to tell you, part of the reason that the Amazing Rhythm Aces have a new life is due to our friends in Australia.
It pretty much started down here, didn't it?
Indeed. It's kind of what got the band back together. We had some correspondence with some friends in Australia when we first released our CD, Rides Again, and some friends of ours asked us if we'd be interested in regrouping or whatever to come to Australia to play some dates, and we couldn't say yes fast enough. Got the old band back together and rehearsed it up and came down for a triumphant tour in about 1995 and been coming down about every 18 months since. This will be our 5th trip since we've been back together.
That's terrific. Has it been more fun second time around?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At least on my part, I had to grow up a little bit, you know. But it's a lot more fun now that we're responsible adults. Speaking for myself only, of course.
So even the touring side of it's more enjoyable now than before.
It is indeed. You know, I think we appreciate the places we go a lot more than we did back in the old days. May have taken that for granted, and these days, you know, get to travel around the world and around the United States and play for great people who remember the Aces and come out to our shows, and it's a wonderful time in life right now.
Let's just backtrack and do a bit of history here. What was your musical involvement before the Aces? Where were you at musically then?
Well, keeping in mind that I was just about 21 or 22 years old, I was living in Chicago, and a couple of the guys that were to later become Aces, Butch McDade, our unfortunately deceased drummer, and Barry Bird Broughton, who later went on to be our guitar player and producer, they were in Chicago playing on the same bill as a band I was playing in. I pretty much, when I didn't know what to do, always gravitated towards the blues, and that's what I was doing in Chicago. These two guys were in a band called Rich Mountain Tower from Knoxville, Tennessee, and we played on the same bill. Met these guys, we jammed a little bit, and then when they got back to Tennessee, Butch McDade called and left me a message in Chicago that I needed to call him up and come down to Tennessee and hook up with him and a songwriter friend of his named Russell Smith, and make music together. Subsequently, I did that. Previous to that, I'd been traveling around playing in like show bands and that kind of thing, and playing blues in Chicago. Although I'm originally from Indiana. And so the rest kind of was history. I moved down to Knoxville, Tennessee, and hooked up with Russell and Butch and a guitar player, and we had a band called Fatback. And we had that for about a year. And then Butch McDade and myself got called to come to Canada and play with a sort of an expatriate American, Jesse Winchester, who was living in Canada at the time. And so we went up to Canada, played with him, subsequently recorded our very first LP that we'd ever played on, which was Jesse's, called Learn to Love It. And during the course of recording that record, it came to light that we had a few of our friend Russell Smith's songs with us, one of them being Third Rate Romance and the other being The End Is Not in Sight. And we actually played those on some gigs around with Jesse. People seemed to react and enjoy those songs. And so when it came time to do Jesse's record, we put those songs on there, with Butch McDade actually singing Third Rate Romance. And so that lasted about a year. We toured all around with Jesse, all that kind of thing. And Jesse kind of, you know, he was more sort of a stay-at-home, write songs kind of guy than touring guy. So it came time for us to go back to Knoxville and get reconnected and all that with Russell Smith again, which we did. And at this time, then, we sort of knew how to make records and that. And so we came back and just started putting tunes on tape. As a result of that, our friend Barry Bird Broughton heard us actually doing that. And at that time, he was working at Sam Phillips Recording in Memphis, Tennessee, and asked us if we'd like to come over to Memphis to Sam Phillips Recording and lay the tunes down on tape just to see what they sounded like. We, in fact, took him up on that offer, and then after making several trips across the state of Tennessee, which is very long, we decided it'd be better for us just to stay in Memphis, and so we all sort of gravitated over that way, and Knox Phillips, the son of Sam Phillips, the owner of the studio and discoverer of Elvis Presley, started shopping our tunes around to maybe see about getting us a record deal, which after about a year, he did. And that was with ABC Records, and so they released our first single, Third Rate Romance, Low Rent Rendezvous, back in about 1974. This single came out, and it was a sort of surprise hit, a surprise to us anyway. We didn't really understand about that. And so ABC called for enough tunes for an LP, which we already had in the can, and that ended up being our first record, if you will, Stacked Deck. And then sort of the rest was history from there.
Was pretty much. So, first time you went into the studio as a band, did you know the sound you wanted, or did you pretty much just play it by ear?
We were far too naive for that. No, we didn't understand about that. In fact, I don't think we could have recorded Third Rate Romance today because we all know too much. We're a bit all fairly studio savvy and all that. No, we just went in and in our innocence just played the songs how we felt them, which is pretty much how we do records now, except all of us, been making records for a long, long time now. And a lot of times we might play the parts that we feel like, okay, this situation happens, play this part here, rather than through our being naive or whatever, just, play it as we felt or something. I don't know how to describe that, but, we know too much these days.
Were you comfortable back in the 70s being categorized in that whole country rock type genre?
Well, I'm sure, except it was sort of a hard category back then because the division lines were much clearer then. It was sort of, they didn't have the term Americana. They barely had the term country rock. And we weren't really one of these sort of southern boogie bands or whatever. But yeah, that's quite a flattering term, even though our music encompassed far more styles than just sort of country rock. I mean, we were everything from sort of bare bones bluegrass style to rhythm and blues to rock and roll a la Chuck Berry to straight blues. We covered a lot of musical genres. And today, as I mentioned, that would probably be classified as Americana, which is sort of an amalgam of American music styles, but at the time, they didn't have that term.
Now, I'm sure this is a question you've had to answer a million times before, but the origins of your nickname Stick.
Great. Hey, I'm glad you asked me that question. Well, if you take a look at me, anyway, although I play the bass, my nickname is Stick, and it used to reflect my build. That's how I got that name. But, as the years have gone on, I just kind of keep that nickname around for sentimental reasons. I'm not quite as stick-like as I was.
Let's return to our chat. Was the bass your first instrument of choice?
Pretty much, yeah. I was in grade school, what we call it here anyway. I was in about the 6th grade, and I just went down to the band room one day, and I saw the upright bass there. And in looking for something to play, that appealed to me. It sort of touched me in some way. And so I started playing the upright bass, and I did that in grade school in my first year of high school. And then I remember in the 8th grade, I'd gone to Boy Scout camp for the weekend, and I came back, and the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. And I took a look at Paul McCartney playing an electric instrument like I played. Also, during that time, I had a little electric guitar, and I was taking guitar lessons, so I understood sort of the technique of playing the electric guitar coupled with the knowledge of how the bass worked. And I saw Paul McCartney on TV with that cool hair and that cool band and all those cool chicks. And I said, I think this is something for me. So I've always played the bass, and I've always enjoyed the bass in life. If you go past the airport and hear these mighty jets taking off with those jet engines and these real low tones. And, that bass, I have a great love for the bass.
Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the All Music Guide website. It's like an online encyclopedia of music. Under the Amazing Rhythm Aces, it has you guys listed in your profile as being humorous, playful, laid-back, mellow, cheerful, organic, amiable, good-natured. Which of those do you think matches the group most?
Oh, I think they forgot have great personalities to make all their own clothes as well as wear sensible shoes. I think we're all that stuff, We're all professional musicians. And we try to have a bit of sense of humor with our music and indeed surrounding our career. You know, we're all good friends, and we're still laughing at the same stupid jokes we did back in the 70s, you know. We're all very close friends. We get along real well. At this point in life, we certainly enjoy each other's company and all that. So, yeah, I believe, you know, I think that's very descriptive. Whoever wrote that, salute.
Now, your earlier albums, I believe, have just been or are in the process of being re-released on CD.
They are. They're sort of dribbling out here and there. We released some of them. Other people have licensed them. So they're kind of coming out here and there, you know. And we'll certainly be having a bunch of those with us when we arrive on your shores.
That's great news for those who have been long waiting to update their old vinyl. You must be pretty happy about that.
Yes, indeed. The response has been, I don't know, not necessarily overwhelming, but close to it.
Yeah.
Which sort of warms our hearts to once again realize that there's a lot of people out there that remember us for a long time, because it was about 15 years from the time that we parted back in 1981 till we regrouped and came to visit you in about 1990.
In 94.
It was, or 95, around in there.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but about 14, 15 years.
Was there any main motivating factor that brought about the breakup in 81?
Well, I think the face of music sort of changed. About 81, you know, the serious Studio 54, glammo, disco, hair bands, no shirts kind of thing was happening, and we didn't really fit into that. Also, at that point, we didn't really have a record deal anymore. So our touring expenses kept going up, and our fees either stayed the same or kind of started going down. And maybe it was just time for a break. I know that, you know, at the time it was devastating to me. It was kind of like a divorce or something. I'm not, although pretty amicable, still, you know, that's all I'd done for about 6 or 7 years was play with the Aces and play Aces songs.
Mm.
So then, as for myself, I kind of had to learn how to be a commercial professional musician, which I certainly did. Luckily, I was living in Memphis at the time, and you know, once again, sort of gravitated back to the blues and R&B and that kind of thing, and spent a good deal of time playing with Al Green, a few years in there, and played with B.B. King for a little bit, and played with some other great blues artists, and made some blues records and that kind of thing around living around Memphis. So. To answer that, I think it was good for all of us because we all went out and did other things. We grew as musicians and we grew as human beings and raised our families, that kind of thing, you know.
So you'd say the time you spent away from each other probably helped build a better band in the long run?
It probably did as we you know, sort of got older and matured and all that kind of thing. I've got to say that for me, I was pretty lucky. You know, like I said, got to play with some great artists and tour around the world with some other people, and was quite prepared for the time that the Aces got back together. I'll have to say I never really expected it to happen, but the fact that it did made all of us very happy. You know, especially me. I didn't really expect to get to be playing with these great musicians again, and to be in the presence of their company, and to go out and play these great songs again. Absolutely was one of the best events in my life.
Did you all remain in contact during that 15 years?
Yeah, off and on. Different ones of us played together. Butch and I played together different times. Billy Earhart and I worked together different times. I think Russell and James Hooker had written songs together and possibly played together. Yeah, so in sort of a loose way, yeah, we sure did. And then about 1992, Russell grouped us all together to get together and record our first CD, which was Ride Again, which was sort of remakes of a bunch of our tunes from our previous LPs that had not come out on CD at the time.
Was when the call came to get the band back together, was there any tentativeness about getting the band back together? Any worries that you may not be able to rekindle what you had? I
don't think so. No? I think the feeling was it was more like a gathering of old friends, and we fell right into it. I mean, when we met at the studio, I'll never forget it. It was in September of 1992, and when we all met together at the studio, it was the original guys, and it was a wonderful thing. And as soon as we started knuckle down and start playing the songs, It was perfect.
Good thing about it too, it hasn't been a reunion just centered on playing the old favourites. There's been an emphasis on bringing in new material as well. Has that been particularly important?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, because as a band, because we are still a band, we're still growing as a band, and we're still growing individually as musicians, even after all these years. You know, so it's good to play new songs, and it's good to play the favorites that people remember. So I got to say, both of those things are, you know, they work hand in hand.
In recent times, you've been a band pretty much in control of your own business affairs too, looking after your own bookings and selling your own CDs. How have you found that experience?
Seeing as how I do a lot of that, Russell actually handles the recording and, you know, the creative part of that. You know, he owns the record label. So he handles the creative part of that, and I handle the nuts and bolts part. I've been booking most of the gigs, do the road managing and all that, and I find it very satisfying. We spent a lot of money back in the old days paying people to do that, and we're very self-sufficient these days. I mean, we're literally coming to your country on tour, just us five guys, really. And I do the tour managing. In fact, I'm working on our tour itinerary booklets as we speak.
Would you love to have the time over again to do it that way the first time?
I'm not sure that, once again, that sort of growing up process had to take effect. I'm not sure that I would have been any good at that back in those days. But after the Aces, I was kind of left to my own devices. So as myself personally, I had to take charge of my own career, and I learned how to do a bunch of the sort of nuts and bolts stuff, which I do a lot of it now, not only for the Aces, but with other artists as well. So I'm not, to answer the question, I'm not really sure that I would have been that good at it back in those days. Besides, you kind of have to pay for those lessons in life, find out what not to do.
Has it turned out to be more work than you expected?
Well, I'm not sure I had any preconceived notions, but it is a lot of work. A lot of it is paperwork. So, you know, I play the bass. I don't really chase the like demo sessions and that kind of thing as I used to do around town here in Nashville. I still play on people's records and stuff, but also, you know, I kind of enjoy the business end of it. But it is a lot of work and sometimes can be tedious. But I don't know. I feel like I've got a pretty good feeling for that. My band guys usually trust me to get them from point A to point B and get them played, paid, and back home. And I've done that and haven't lost a guy yet. I've drugged these guys all over the world, believe me.
Now let's talk about your upcoming visit down here. You've been regulars down here, as we've already discussed over the last few years. It must be a great feeling to know that you can travel to the other side of the world and have an audience ready and waiting. I don't think I have words to describe how flattered we are by that. What an honor it is, because a lot of American musicians and artists and stuff would certainly love to come to your country, but you know, it's kind of pricey to get there. And one thing I got to say, I don't know, you may have to bleep this out if this is on the air. Are we live? No, we're not, no.
Well, I got to say that Australian audiences do not go for any bullshit. If we came on and we were some sort of contrived band or something, I don't think they would have cared about us. But because we play honest music, which is from the heart, I think that is, it seems to me that our Australian audiences like the realness of what we are. And we're flattered to be, considered a favorite there. And, as long as people want to see us in your great country, we want to come and be there for them.
Oh, that's great to hear. What can we expect from these shows? Will you be road testing any new material?
Yes, we will. Actually, we're going to be playing some songs from Russell Smith has a new solo CD out called The End Is Not in Sight, which is a collection of songs that he has written and had hits on for other artists, including a couple of Aces songs in there. It's a great record. Got a bunch of real cool Russell Smith songs on there, so we're going to be promoting that. Our latest studio CD, we're going to be promoting that. That's come out since we were there last. It's called Chock Full of Country Goodness. You're probably familiar with it. Mm-hmm. So we're still promoting that. Also, we've got a live LP that was a live studio CD called Absolutely Live that was recorded in Switzerland, and that's we'll be promoting that as well.
Terrific. And just to sum up, apart from years of experience, what other qualities does the 2002 version of the Aces have that perhaps it didn't have back in the early days?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yep, sure. Other than the years of experience you've obviously racked up over the years, what other qualities do you think the band has now that it didn't have back in the old days?
Well, I think we're far more serious as musicians. It was pretty much of a rolling party back in the old days, which that we, especially when we were touring, that we sort of just took time out to play the shows. Now the shows are the most important thing. So I'll have to say that once again that bit of maturity that I feel like that we gained over the years, that's that coming into play.
And what's on your books after you leave us?
Let me see. Well, we've been touring quite a bit here in the States. We'll be back. I think I got a couple of dates with some guys, Brooklyn Cowboys, that I've been doing some work with. An interesting band that I feel like Australians would like them as well. I think in October we're probably going to start on a new studio CD. Also, we're going to be touring there with our friend Keith Glass, who is a great artist into himself. Played on a couple of his CDs, and he's going to be here in the States, he and Mick Hamilton, during the month of October. So we're going to see about maybe doing a couple of tracks with them. And we'll resume touring, right up till about November, and then some of us will be going over to Europe on a blues tour, backing up some various blues artists around Central and Eastern Europe. Something we do every year, and kind of work it right up till the end of the year. Hopefully we'll be playing New Year's somewhere. We don't have one on the books yet, so maybe somebody'd like to have the Aces for their private New Year's party.
Hey, wouldn't that be good?
Oh, absolutely.
Ask you about the Brooklyn Cowboys. Actually, how did that one come about?
Well, the way that the name and the concept for the band came about, our fearless leader on that is a fellow named Fredro Perry. He's the brother of the famous producer Richard Perry. Anyway, he's the drummer and sort of one of the two visionaries in the band, the other one being an artist, Walter Egan. Walter had that great song Magnet and Steel out some years ago, back in the 70s, I believe, or early 80s. And these two got to be friends in New York, and writing sort of alt country songs, that kind of thing. And then they started sort of commuting here. Walter lives here now. Fred Rose still lives in New York. He lives in Brooklyn, so hence the Brooklyn Cowboys. And they've done a couple of CDs, got a great new one getting ready to come out here. It's called Dodging Bullets. And they're an interesting band. There's a steel guitar player. His name is Buddy Cage. He was played with the New Riders of the Purple Sage. In fact, he took Jerry Garcia's place in that band when Jerry finally, I guess got too busy to do it. So there's, that's sort of a piece of it there.
Maybe on the next Aces tour you could bring both bands down, do a double bill. That would be something.
Well, it's kind of possibly trying to look into that,
It would be terrific. Okay, Jeff, look, thanks for your time this morning.
John, thank you. Thank you so much for calling. I look forward to seeing you there. Also, in the Melbourne area, I'd be remiss if I did not mention the name of a good friend of ours, and I'm sure you know him, a journalist friend of ours, Dave Dawson.
Yep, certainly.
Dave's an old friend of ours from the first time we came to Australia back in 1980. And we've known Dave for a lot of years, and he usually accompanies us around on a few dates. And we certainly look forward to seeing Dave again. He's always been a big champion of the Aces and a good, a close personal friend of ours. So, Dave, if you're reading this or you're hearing this, hey, we look forward to hooking up with you.
Fantastic. We look forward to seeing you at the Corner Hotel here in Melbourne on August 31.
Absolutely.
And
please come out and be our guest that night.
We'd love to see you. I'll be there for sure.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much.
All the best. Take care, and we'll see you in August. And I can certainly say to all my listeners, an Aces gig is a top night out.
All right. Well, I certainly look forward to it.
Thanks, Jeff.
All the best, my friend. Talk to you later.
We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.